Hello and welcome. How is everyone today? I am about to get started. Looks like my streams are all live, so I don't need to waste any more time on that. First thing I want to do today, hang on one moment here. Didn't quite get my windows arranged yet, but I'm doing it now. I want to start today with an email I sent to my mailing list today. Let me share my screen. I should turn off that little starting in 2 minutes banner. That's a good idea. There we go. Oh, let me hide that silly logo there in the way too. All right, now we can just see what I'm trying to talk about. And that's this, unique loop variables and the Go 1.22 fix. So this email came out today on my mailing list where I talk about Go. Specifically, I am talking about the Go spec, and I'm taking sort of point by point the written Go specification, the language specification, and explaining it for newbies. If that sounds like you should be on my list if you're not already. Head over to boldlygo.tech/daily and you can sign up there. But I'm going to go through the email I sent today because it's a really interesting topic that has tripped up virtually every single Go developer in history until recently, and it still trips people up. So let me talk about that. So the section of the spec we're going through right now is about for loops. That's this section right here. And this might look kind of boring. I'm trying to make it as simple and easy to understand as possible in my list. The point here is that today we talked about this particular sentence. Each iteration of the for loop has a separate declared variable or variables. You can have more than one. Typically, you have one. For example, I should have put an example here. Here's an example. So here, for I colon equals 1 or equals 0, as long as I is less than 10, we keep iterating, and then we add to I. Before Go 1.22, this I variable was reused on every iteration through the loop, which probably kind of makes intuitive sense at first blush. Like, why would we need a different I variable each time through, right? Well, that actually causes all sorts of problems in certain cases. Not every case, but in certain cases it does. And it has tripped people up for a decade more. So in 1.22, Go 1.22, which was just released earlier this year in February, they fixed that. And so today's email is just sort of talking about that. So prior to Go 1.22, which only came out in February, the loop variable is reused rather than redeclared for each loop. Notice that this here says it's declared. Each iteration has its own separate declared variable. That's new. The old version prior to Go 1.22 didn't do that. This led to a lot of confusion and bugs, which I'm not really, that's not the point of today's email or video. That's not what I'm talking about. But trust me, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it caused a lot of bugs. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, consider yourself lucky, because you don't have to deal with it anymore unless you do, which is what I really wanted to talk about. So if you're really interested in the details, there's a nice link here to the Go blog, which explains the problem in a little bit more detail and how they fixed it. But for my purposes here, I want to point out two things. For our purposes, going through the spec, you only need to care about this. And if you're watching this today, you only need to care about this if one of two things is true for you. The first is you're reading a book or a tutorial or a blog post that explains the problem and tells you how to work around it, how to fix it. You can just disregard that advice, basically. That's nice. That's a nice thing. You can just skip that section of the book, unless the second point also applies to you. And that is if you're building a Go tool or module that must support old versions of Go. Now, I said specifically module here because that's what's going to affect most people. It could be a tool. If you have a command line tool or a web server or something that needs to support an old version of Go for some reason, maybe you need to run on old hardware that has dropped support in a new version of Go, for example. That's the only reason I could think of that might apply. This much more frequently would apply to if you're writing a library or a module that is imported by other packages, by other Go projects, and you want to maintain backward compatible support earlier than Go 1.22, meaning sort of at all at the moment. As we get into the future, 122 is the magic line. So if you need your library to support older versions of Go and your go.mod has the Go version that says 1.21 or 1.18 or anything like that, anything earlier than 1.22, then you still have to worry about this. I just very briefly put a little quick explainer here, not really what the problem is, but just how to solve the problem, and that is just this one little extra line right here. So if you're using an old version of Go or need to support an old version of Go, maybe your local version is 1.22, but your module, your Go mod says 1.20, you still need to support the old version because it depends on that Go mod line, not the version of Go you're running. This was very explicit, and it actually took them quite a while to get this to work that way, to be as safe as possible when making this change. If you need to support an old version of Go, add this little magical declaration at the top of your for loop. So if it's I, if it's Q, if it's X, if it's iterations, whatever your variable or variables are, just redeclare them to themselves. And what this does is it creates a shadow variable, which is kind of icky in most situations, but it's probably the best way to do it here. Creates a new copy of I that is repeated or is declared for each iteration of the loop. The nice thing about this little fix, if you do this, is you don't have to unfix it when you do end up upgrading to Go 1.22. It's unnecessary in Go 1.22, but it's not harmful. The only negative side effect you have doing this in Go 122 or newer is it uses a teensy tiny bit, a little bit more memory, and maybe it confuses people when they see this for the first time. But trust me, seeing this for the first time is less confusing than the bugs you get when you don't do it. So if you need to support all versions of Go, do that. Otherwise, head over to boldlygo.tech/daily and sign up for my daily email where I send little tips like this every day, 5 days a week. Completely free. Unsubscribe anytime if you don't like it. That was my little detour for the day. I want to talk about the code I'm going to be writing now. So let's do some of that. Yeah. So I'm working on Kivik, which is my own open source library. The website is here at kivik.io. You can click on GitHub if you want to follow along, if you want to fork it or do your own what's who's it's. What is Kivik? That's a great question. I should have answered that before I went to GitHub. It's a CouchDB and PouchDB library for Go. So it's CouchDB is kind of like Mongo. It predates MongoDB. It's a JSON document storage database rather than a relational or SQL database. And so as far as I know, this is the most popular Go library or SDK for CouchDB. 302 stars now. So CouchDB isn't that popular, so I don't expect to get thousands of stars on this or follows or whatever. But as far as I know, this is by far the most popular of the CouchDB libraries for Go, and I'm adding some features to it. So it already works. I started this back in 2017, I think. I'm on version 4.2, so I've had several stable releases. I know it's being used in production. I've used it at some startups I worked at, but I'm adding features. The feature I'm adding lately for the last few months is the ability to, what I want, the goal is to be able to run tests for my apps that use CouchDB in memory without having to start a CouchDB server. The way I'm accomplishing that is I'm building a backend for CouchDB that uses SQLite. Why SQLite instead of just my own in-memory thing? Well, for one thing, manipulating data in the SQL database is a lot easier than trying to build my own data structures and B trees and whatnot manually. So that's nice. And second, SQLite gives me three things that I want. One, it supports in-memory mode. out of the box. So I get my in-memory thing. It supports disk-based databases. So if I have a reason to want to store on a SQLite.db file or whatever, I can. And third, by writing the SQL for SQLite, I'm actually one step closer to creating like a Postgres or MySQL backend if I want to, which I would like to. I don't really have a practical need for it right now, but it seems like a good thing to do. Gets me one step closer to that. So I've been making a lot of progress on this over the last several weeks. I was working on it earlier this afternoon, and I'm going to continue on that today. So let's get started. Let me pull up the terminal. I don't know what we're going to work on today. What feature though? Not the same one I was on earlier. I'm gonna save that for later. Let me see where we are. Let me zoom in a little bit. So I'm gonna push up the branch I was working on. I think it's. I'm not even going to talk about what that was because I don't want to get distracted. But I want to get it merged so it's there. It's integrated. But let me just create that pull request quickly, and then I'll get started. By the way, if you have any questions or comments throughout the entire thing here, just let me know. Got a comment. Just finished watching my podcast with boot.dev. Yeah, Lane, he's a great guy. Thanks for watching. What did you think? What did you think about that? And Intree says a late hello. Welcome. Hello, Intree. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. All right, so this is going to start CI in the background. We're not going to worry about what that is right now. What I am going to worry about is opening up my IDE. Oops, let me try that again. I just hit the wrong button and closed it in the wrong window. All right, so I'm not sure what feature I'm going to work on. I might implement something brand new. Let me see. I have these stubs created that don't do anything yet. We could implement create doc. We could implement copy. Bulk docs is probably a bit of a beast. I don't think view cleanup and compact view matter that much, although I may do those eventually. I think we might start with create doc today. So what create doc does is it, in CRUD terminology, it does a create. That's the name create. There's already the ability to create a document in the version I've written. The difference between create doc and what I've already created, I'm going to pull the catch2b documentation to explain the difference. But there's two ways to create documents. You can use create, which is the equivalent of a REST post, or you can do put, which is the equivalent of a REST put. The difference is that put, you have to specify the document ID, which is sort of the primary key. With the create, it creates a random one for you. And that's the part that might actually prove not challenging per se, but like I have to decide how to create those keys. But let's do it. Let's start with that. Let's create a branch called create doc. And then I was going to pull up the documentation for it. I'm going to need it. Even if I don't need it now, I'm going to need it as we start to build this. Here we go. So we have, so CouchDB's native interface is this web-based REST thing. So here's put, which I already have implemented. But then there's also, wait, where is it? Oh yeah, there it's up here, I think. I'm not finding it yet. That's weird. Where is it? Okay, here's the link to it. I don't know why I didn't find it before. All right, so post to the database creates a new document in the specified database using the supplied JSON document structure. If the JSON structure includes an ID field, then it will be created using that document ID. If it does not specify a new unique ID is generated following whatever UUID algorithm is configured for that server. And that is the part that might end up being a little bit messy. I have to decide if I care about supporting multiple UUID algorithms or not, but we're going to get started. We'll see how far we get. So first thing I want to do is create a new file for this new method. I don't always do that, but in this case, I've been doing that fairly strictly. Some of these methods are really simple, and like ping was a really simple example. We saw that on the screen. You may not have noticed it. That's all that ping does. There's no reason to put that in its own file. On the other hand, like get is 150 lines long plus some helpers and whatnot. All in all, it's 300 lines. I put that in a separate file. Get attachment, similar sort of. It's not nearly as long, but it is 85 lines or whatever if you count the two functions together. So anyway, I'm going to put create in its own file. Create doc.go and create doc_test.go. I'll be using TDD today to write my tests. And the first thing I need to do is copy this boilerplate. This is so annoying, but at least some interpretations of the Apache license, which I'm using, says this has to be at the top of every file. I think that's dumb, but I'm using the Apache license because CatchDB is an Apache project, blah, blah, blah. So I do it. All right. And then I'm going to move this create doc over here. Then I'm going to make a commit. So it's just a stub. It doesn't actually do anything right now, obviously. It returns nothing. Blank string, and nil. So if you tried to use it, it would fail, or you would be surprised at least. Let's see, move create doc stub to create doc.go. All right, now one thing I'm going to mention, just out of completeness sake, it's not actually strictly necessary for me to implement this, because if I don't, the Kivik front end will sort of emulate the behavior. It will create everything I need for me. That honestly is a reason I might not want to do this at all. Starting to second guess myself already. Let me see what else we had to play with. We could do copy. Copy is also implemented by the front end if we want to. I have to think about this. Bulk docs would be more useful, but also a lot more involved. Let's look at the bulk docs endpoint and see how difficult that might be. That one might be emulated too, come to think of it. I think it is. Still, bulk doc API allows you to create and update multiple documents at the same time. I'm gonna go with what I started with. I'm gonna do create doc. It'll be a good exercise. Test create create doc. All right, getting started. So I'm going to create what I like to do for most of my tests. I use table-driven tests, so I create a type called test. Usually, it's internal. It's a local type to the test function. And I have a library called testy, which provides some utility functions. It's not an assertion library like testify or anything like that. The main thing I use it for is these table-driven tests. It gives me some functionality to make table-driven tests easier, and you'll see what I'm talking about as I go along here. So one of the things that this testing library does is it gives me this test.run, which takes t from the standard library from testing.t, and then it takes a function with these arguments, testing.t, and then the test type provided here. It's going to be arbitrary, so use a reflection to make that work. And then I run the test here. Let's do parallel. It's always good practice. I should put that at the top here too. And then create doc returns a doc ID, a revision, and an error. I believe that's the order. I want to verify that, but I'm pretty sure that's what that does. Look up my own documentation here to find out. Create doc. It's doc ID revision. Yes. Okay. So I get doc ID, rev, and error. So the first thing I need to put in my test struct is the DB. I want to copy how I'm doing that in other functions. Let me see how that's being done. Doesn't really matter which test I looked at here. All right, I forgot I'm using this test DB thing, but that's fine. That's fine. So let's do that. Then I have tt.db.createDoc. Whoops. All right, and I need to pass in. I'm going to just do nils for right now, even though they're going to cause crashes. Nil, nil, nil. Okay, so this test DB, let's look at what this is. It implements a couple different things, and it doesn't have this create doc in here yet. I'm going to add that. No, what is it called? Doc creator, maybe? Yeah, there it is. All right, now it recognizes that. All right, now I think I have a function that I just noticed. If errors dot, I have a helper function that can do this error checking for me. Oh, before I do that though, I want to add some more things to my test here. So there's the database. What are the arguments? Context doesn't matter. The doc is an empty interface. Then options. And then I want to specify the things I want returned. So I want doc ID string, want rev string, want error string, want status int. So with this error and status, those are related. Error I'll use, as you'll see in a moment, to check the return. If I get an error from create doc, this will be the string representation of the error, and status will be the HTTP status that the error includes. And that's what I think I have a function to help me with. And let me import the right thing here. Go Kivik. Status error diff. Yes. So I put this the string I want, the status I want. Yeah, that's nice. So tt.want error, tt.want status, and then the actual error. It's a string, not nil, not a nillable thing. Something's not working right. Something lined up right. There we go. All right. So this method or this function checks that the string and the status match expectation, and if not, it returns a textual diff that I can display. Not equal nil. If the error is not nil, then I want an early return before I check everything else. If doc ID does not equal want doc ID, Copilot can do this sort of not trivial stuff easily for me. All right. That should be a reasonable place to start with tests. I should pass in tt.doc first. Let's go ahead and pass these things in. Context could be context.background. And then for options, I need to be especially careful here. The thing is, like, if I pass in an actual nil option, it'll cause a problem. It won't right now because this function does nothing, but it will once I have the thing done. So this nil option is a non-nil value, satisfies the options interface without crashing. All right. So our test sort of framework or infrastructure, scaffolding is in place, but there's no test. So let's add a test. And the first test, so I'm going to look at the documentation again here. So the documentation mentions that if the JSON structure includes the ID field, then that's used first. So let's make that our first test, right? Create doc with specified doc ID. And I have to decide how I want to handle this test database instance. For this particular test, I don't care about it. All I want to do is validate that I get back the right values. So, actually, I guess I do care about that then. So I'm going to actually call an inline function here that sets up the test. Hang on. No. I don't actually care about that right now. So what I want to do is make it possible for this DB to be null. So let's do this. DB is DB. DB equals nil. Then DB equals new DBT. All right. Now I just need to specify an ID. Good. And then I expect that ID to be returned. And this part's going to be a little bit tricky. It's not going to be ignored. I want it to be one. I need to use a regular expression here is what I need. I won't know what the full revision is. The revision is an incrementing sequential number 1, 2, 3, 4 dash, and then essentially the MD5 sum of the contents of the document. I could figure that out, but I don't want to. I don't want to be bothered with that sort of detail. It makes for brittle tests. So I want to use a regular expression check. I'm not doing that right here, but I have been doing that in another test. So let me see where I've done that before, and I can copy that logic, or maybe I have a function to do that for me. Compile, that's what I want to look for. Okay, it looks like I just used this, which is perfect. It's not even worth a helper function. I just replace the equality check with a regular expression check. Now the test is going to fail because the test doesn't return anything. It returns empty strings. So it's going to fail, but it fails as expected. So that's good. That means my test is testing something useful that isn't being proven yet by the code. So let's make the code do that thing. Now, the simplest way to make the code do that thing right now is to hard code that thing. Print foo, and then 1, it doesn't matter, nil, right? So now my test is going to pass, but for the wrong reasons. I'm going to go ahead and commit it, though. Because I've made some progress here. Most of my progress here is in making an interesting test scaffolding, but it's still worth committing. All right, now I'm going to start a to-do list of things that I want to test for. Create doc with specific doc ID, but the ID already exists. Good conflict. Create doc with no ID should generate one. Are there any other cases I care about? Really? I mean, there are other sort of unusual corner cases. I guess I could pass a an invalid document, one that can't be marshaled to JSON. The database might not be found. These are some of these things. Like I could definitely do an invalid JSON. Um, the database not found is something it's not easy. I can't test it in this particular um, with this particular scaffolding. I can test it, but I need to do that testing for all of the methods, and I haven't done that yet. So I'll probably do that once and for all a little bit later. Are there any other error conditions I could worry about? Oh, unauthorized. I don't care about that. I don't have a sense of um, account access with the SQLite backend, so that's not really possible here. Bad request is not found. What happened if the database doesn't exist in conflict? So I have tests for in my to-do list now for conflict and bad request. That says for invalid database name. It can also happen for an invalid document, I know, and other things. Um, and then UUID algorithm configure on the server. That's something let me make a note. I don't know what I want to do with that. Different UID configuration options? Question mark. Big question mark. A couple other things. I need one more question mark there. Silly. All right. Let's do invalid document. That should be easier to start with. So let's do that one next. Invalid document should return 400. So all I need to do now is create a document that can't be marshaled to JSON. There's a really easy way to do that. I can pass in a function or a channel or anything like that that can't be marshaled to JSON. Let's do make chan int. Now here I want error. I don't know if that's exact error I'll be getting, but that's close enough for right now. Want status, HTTPS status, bad request. Right. This is not going to work. The tests are going to fail because I never return an error from there, right? But we can fix that. Now it's time to start using these variables. So we need doc, CTX. Actually, I don't need CTX or options yet, so I'll just leave blank lines there. Let's see. I want, let's call it JSON doc. Okay, I'm not actually using this yet, so that'll be a blank. So now I should get a different error and a different status. So the default status, if I don't specify one, is 500. So this error is returning a 500. I need to fix that. And then the error text looks like it's probably right. Yeah. So I'm getting JSON unsupported type chan int 500, and I want 400. So let's solve that. So I have a custom error type I use. That's not the right package. Let's try this again. GitHub.com, go Kivik Kivik before int errors. To this package. And I think this should work. Good. I should delete this from the to-do list now. We still have the problem, though, that this test, the first test we wrote, is passing for stupid reasons because it's just the expectations are hard coded. So I mean, the one way to solve that is to Yeah, I'm trying to think. So I could solve the ID part by just creating another test that with the ID of bar, right? And then I can't hard code it anymore because foo and bar can't both be hard coded. Uh, the I can't do the same thing with revision because the truth is with create doc, the revision is always going to be one dash something. So the question I just got a question on chat asking what the web application is about. So this isn't actually a web application. I'm building a database backend for my CouchDB driver. The the point here is to be able to test applications that use CouchDB without starting CouchDB. So you may have done something similar with MySQL or with Redis. If you have an in-memory implementation of your database for tests, I'm building that in-memory implementation. I'm building it by using SQLite. So once this is done, then you could use this, or I could use this to build a web application. But I'm not building a web application per se today. Okay. I'm not sure I like the idea of having two tests that just vary like this. But it's one simple way to force myself to be a little bit more creative with this. So now I need this first value to do something more intelligent than just that. And so basically, I need to extract that ID field from doc, right? Now, I already have some code to do that. I don't remember how it works, but I have something. I think I have a file called json.go that does some of this for me. Um, which function is it? Not yet, not yet. Getting close, I think. Prepare doc. I think prepare doc is what I want. So it returns, yeah. So I pass it a document ID, which I don't know. So that'll have the empty string, and then that doc, which is the arbitrary thing I got. And this does the JSON marshaling and all that fun stuff for me. So it'll actually get rid of everything I've done so far. But so let's do data error colon equals prepare doc empty string because we don't know the ID. The reason that's possible to pass in is because if you're using put, then that doc ID comes through a different channel. Then I do have that directly there. But this will also, I'm pretty sure it will also look in doc for that for me. Return blah blah blah. Okay, so this is now redundant, and then this will be return data.id. Does data.rev do anything? No, it's not a thing yet. Well, I'm not worried about that right yet, so I'm going to leave that hard coded and silly. Okay, so that's interesting. That didn't do what I expected. So for some reason, I found a bug in that thing, right? In that function. This needs to return status bad request as well. That's nice that I found that. All right. Stop hard coding. It should be dashed, I think. Using doc ID in return and use prepare doc to parse document. All right, making a little bit of progress. Oh, you know what? I need to. No, I don't need to delete anything yet. So I was thinking about how can I test whether I get the correct. What am I saying? The correct revision. I think the best way to do that is to check what the MD5 sum should be. So I can do that by putting the document first using my existing put method, see what the revision is, and then recreate the document. I think that'll work. Let's try it. Validate correct revision. So you notice rather than passing this test struct directly into the function, I'm not passing a function that returns a test type. This allows me to do a little bit of extra setup. This is one of the things that my testy library does. All right, so what I'm doing here is putting the document that should be the exact same document I want to create. This is the wrong format though. This needs to be a map, just like up here. Let me just copy it. But by creating the exact same document using put, I should get, okay, something's not right here. There we go. We should get, the revision should be the same since it's deterministic. It should be, we'll see. Actually, I don't need to return the same DB. All I need this for is to calculate the revision. In fact, I think I have a method that can do that for me. Let me see. Maybe I don't need to do a whole insert. That would be even better. This JSON thing, right? How do I calculate? Rev ID returns calculated revision ID, possibly setting MD5. I think I can. So I think I could do this. Data equals doc data ID foo. No, if it's as simple, I could put it up in this test here, right? I don't need to create a new test for it. Let's see if I can just put it here. Doc data. Doesn't like that. Why? Cannot call pointer method. Okay. There's got to be a way to do this in line. I just don't remember what it is. There, I think that's it. See if that works. MD5 sum not set. I don't care. All right, maybe it's not quite that simple, huh? If MD5 sum is 0, which it is, and the length of the document is 0, then I panic. Why? I'm not sure. I'm sure there was a reason I did it that way. Just don't remember what it is. Okay, what is this doc deal? That's the content of the document. So maybe I need to set that to something. Let's try that. Hey, there we go. It's not exactly what I wanted. This should be like this. Yes. All right. Now that looks like a reasonable expectation. I'm not 100% sure that's the correct expectation, but it's better than this. So let's try to make this function actually do a useful thing now. Data.rev ID. Following the same method should produce the same results. It's not. Oh, and I see why, because I'm doing the same thing. It is actually returning the same hash, so that's right. But it's not returning the one dash part. Let me look at this a little more closely. Well, I'm going to hard code the one dash. I know it's always going to be one dash here anyway. This probably isn't the way it's going to stay. I mean, I'm quite certain it's not, but at least it's better than it was before. Incremental improvements are fine. Make tests smarter, not just tests, and code smarter about generating revision IDs. All right. Now let's do this one. Create a document that's with no, not that one. I want to do this one next, without a specific ID, and let it created. Doc without ID. You have to think about how I'm going to validate that this works. What I need is a function, some sort of check function that I can run after the fact to do a further check. So let me add that to my test thing here. Check func. I'll just have it take testing.t. So this will be func t. Actually, you know what? If I have it take a database as well, let me see how I've done this before. Yeah, I've done t.t. Is that what I want? That's probably what I want. Let's pull this file up and look at it. Yeah, we're going to just copy that same pattern. So this is right. Check is func t test that just takes a single testing.t argument. Note there's no ID field in this map this time. And then we want doc ID. Yeah, that's right. Anything. Revision should still be one dash whatever. And then we have a check we want to do. And this is where, actually, how am I going to check this? Well, I actually do know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do our doc ID string. So what I'm doing here is just doing a SQL query to select the ID from the target table in SQLite with the specified revision and doc content. Now, this database is created for every test, so it should be empty except for the new row I created. But still, this way I'm sure that I got the right row. Because I don't know what the document ID is, just that it should be something, right? In this case, I got no document ID, which makes sense because this code hasn't been updated to create a document ID yet. How do I want to create a document ID? I just have to decide. I've done this before in other parts of this code. Let me look. So here's the emulation version, I think. Well, somewhere here. I just use UUID new string. Let's do the same thing. Yeah, that's perfect. Can always make it more flexible later on. I even have a note there to make it configurable. Maybe I will someday. If data.id equals nothing, then data.id equals blah. Okay. Should make that part of the test pass. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it does make that part of the test pass. This check didn't pass, but that's because the check's not being executed yet. So I need to still make that do something. If t.check is not equal nil, then run that. Now it should fail. It's not failing. Why? Why? This should fail right here. Let me make sure this is being run. I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. Let's try it here. Okay, the panic is happening. That's good. Let's see what happens now. Yeah, okay. So this is funny. Unexpected docket, expected dot star got this. Oh, that's because I'm not doing a regular expression check there. So I will do a regular expression check there, just like I did here. If not reg x dot must compile tt dot want doc id match string. All right. All right. I can also make this pattern more explicit than just dot star. Let's find a regular expression for UUID v4. I'm sure there's 1,000 of them on the interwebs. I can just copy one. It's kind of ugly, but it's probably what I want. Let's start with, is that the right way to do case insensitive and go? I think. Unexpected ID, expected blah, got blah. Let's see if this matches anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, right? Okay, and then 4, yep. And then 3, yeah. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 12. So those lengths look right. I think that case insensitive bit isn't working. I don't remember the exact syntax to do that. Oh, there's no colon. Okay. Question I. All right, so that one's working now, but the check is failing because I'm getting no results in result set. And I don't know why. Probably because the JSON output doesn't exactly match this. But I have some tools to make it easier to test. What's it? Keep variable. Yeah. Keep test db equals 1, test equals. So by default, when I run these tests, it creates in-memory databases, which is the whole point of the thing in the first place, right? But if I add this keep test database, then it stores the database on disk and leaves it around for me so I can examine it. There's nothing there. You know what? Now that I say that, it makes perfect sense because I haven't done anything to insert the database row yet. So that makes perfect sense. Let's fix that. I'm going to look at put because that's where I do the other place, the other insert logic, and probably copy some stuff from there. I think create doc attachments is the thing I need. Probably just need to call this. Interesting thing is this uses a transaction, which I probably don't care about right now, but it's not harmful to make a transaction. Yeah, I think that's what I need. So I'll need to create a transaction, which is easy enough. Copilot knows what to do, mostly. Why does it do db? Oh, because I haven't referenced this variable yet. Let's try that. Okay. Let's just make sure we're doing this right. Where do I create the transaction? Yeah, I need to defer the rollback. Probably after this, I'll refactor this to not require. Oh, I should use the same CTX I have here, not background. Why is this complaining here? Define D. Oh, because I typoed. That's why. All right. All right. Now I can basically copy this. Needs to be modified slightly. Okay, what is rev? I don't care about rev in this case. Rev. Okay, I do need a transaction. So I was wrong about that because there's two tables to update. And the put updates the first table and then the second table. That method I was about to call just does the second table, I believe. But I need to essentially do this part myself. I don't need to prepare a statement, but I need to do the same logic. I don't remember why this is a separate statement, but I'm sure there's a good reason. Don't care about it right now. But this logic I will basically copy. So I'm going to do equals tx dot exec context. I think I can just copy this. What's complaining? No new variables on left side. Okay, I don't really care about that. If error does not equal nil, then return it. All right, let's see. Then this, I need to pass the arguments here as well. So I need to pass in. First is the data ID. I have to see where this revision comes from over here. Oh, I see why this is a prepared statement because it's a loop. Yeah, it makes sense. That doesn't apply to my case right now. So in this case, I know that revision is always 1. So that can be hard-coded rather than being a variable. And this becomes 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. And parent rev is always null, so I can just delete that. Parent rev only matters when you're updating an existing document, so I don't need that. And I can just let the default, the default conflict behavior. I don't need to specify on conflict. So I just need to pass 2 things then: data ID and data.rev ID. Nice. Okay. Now with that done, now I should be able to call this method as I was starting to do before. And I pass in data and tx and rev. What is rev? Remind me what that is. That is a revision. An ancestor rev. What is that? I think that's going to be, that's for a parent. That's going to be nil in this case. So this needs to be set to something. I think I can just create it inline. Rev, yeah, okay. Rev is always 1. And what was the other field called? ID. ID is data.rev ID. Not enough return values. Yeah, that's fine. Now I'm calling data.rev ID 3 times. That's not ideal, but let's see what happens. See if it's working yet. Still not working. Oh, I forgot to commit. Let's try that. Still not working. All right. What's going on here? A whole bunch of stuff we don't care about right now. File names, attachment stuff. I mean, that in theory that matters. It just doesn't matter right now. Oh, you know what? That's all this does. It creates doc attachment. So that's I do care about that. I just don't care about it right now. So why did I call that? Let me delete that. I mean, I need to add that, but let me add that to my to-do list. But don't forget, create doc with attachments. All right, but where's the thing that inserts into doc? Oh, it's just happening in a separate, okay. I'll just do a separate thing myself then too. I thought I had a method to handle that for me, a helper function, whatever. Maybe I do, and I'll find it later and deduplicate. But for now, I'm going to do it on my own. It's not a big deal. Insert into docs, ID rev ID body. What else do I care about? I do care about ID rev ID. It's not called body, it's called doc. MD5 sum deleted. I think I care about all of those fields. Values. Some of these are hard coded. Yes, I care about that. That is always 1. Yes. Actually, it should be unquoted 1. It's an integer. It doesn't matter for SQLite, but it's an integer, not a string. So I'll do it that way. Then we have 2 is the rev ID, 3 is the body of the document, MD5 sum, and then deleted. I'm going to say false, even though 0 is the same. This is a little bit nicer. And I'm going to skip the on conflict also. If I get a conflict, I want it to error. Returning rev. I guess that's fine. Makes it a little bit easier to generate this value. So that's fine. All right. If errors.is error SQL.error no rows. Why would that happen? So that would happen. That won't happen in this case. That would happen here because the on conflict or nothing. So I'm going to skip that. Let me make sure I have a to-do item. Yes, and it, in theory, probably not worth caring about, but in theory, I could end up with a duplicate UUID. I mean, that's the whole point of UIDs, is not to let that happen. And I'm using UUID v4, so you'd have to create billions of random IDs before you got a duplicate. And if that happened, I would want to try again with a different UUID, but only in the case of a random UUID. As it stands, if I get a conflict, I'm going to treat it the same way I'll treat another conflict, which I haven't tested yet, but I will. I think I'm going to leave it. I think I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm not going to worry about the duplicate UUID case because it's so unlikely to happen. So I'm just kind of rambling there about something that'll never happen. All right. So if error does not equal nil, then let's just return that. Otherwise, we go on. Let's see what happens now. Unexpected error, missing named argument 1. Oh, I forgot to pass in some arguments. That might be useful. Let's pass data.id, data.revID yet again, data.doc. What's going on here? I was quite certain I saw something like that. MD5. Oh, I must be capitalizing it incorrectly, huh? Yeah. Still getting the same error, and I'm not sure why. Let's print. You know what? I might not be calling a method I need to prepare this document. I'm not sure. Okay. Data. No, it should be ready. It should be ready. Oh, that reminds me. I should be able to. I wonder what happens if I create or delete a document. It's something to list. I need to test what actually happens in CatchDB, but that might be a possibility. I don't know. So I'm going to debug this here a little bit. I'm creating some debug output. So there's my output, and that should be what I'm looking for over here in this test, right? Looks like it to me. Let me delete this condition and see what happens. Now it's passing. Okay, so something about the escape sequence or something that worked. Anyway, it's being inserted. I can tell that now. Let's do this. Yeah, so it works. If it works, so I do it that way. So now I just read the document content directly from the database, and then verify it here, and it's getting what I expected. So that's working. Now here, why am I'm doing this returning, but I'm not reading that. So let's get rid of that. All right, let me delete the debug. This is something to commit here. And I need to delete this from the to-do list. I am going to add a to-do item just for my own sanity's sake. retry in case of duplicate random UID. Put some question marks there because doc now does something mildly interesting. It's a terrible commit message, but it's for myself, so whatever. Okay. So I've said several times now that this random UUID collision thing is not worth worrying about, and it's not really. But as I've already mentioned at the beginning of the recording, in theory, I should be able to configure what random UUID algorithm I use, and so maybe one of those would be more likely to have a collision. CouchDB supports 3 or 4 different algorithms. None of them have anything to do with actual UUIDs as we know them. It's their own concept of UUIDs. But anyway, it might be something for me to bother with. I don't know. It's for later. It's on my to-do list for later. Right now, I want to do this one. Create a document specific doc ID, but the ID already exists. That should conflict. So let's do that one. Creating doc with existing ID causes conflict. All right, so here I'm going to create a document called foo. Why not? What it contains doesn't matter. And then I'm going to try to create a new document, also called foo. What did I do wrong? Oh, right. I can't specify the doc. I just specify, yeah, duh. All right. I'll delete this from my to-do list. It's going to fail because I haven't written that logic yet. All right. I was expecting it to fail in some way. Like I would have expected this to fail. Oh, I know why it doesn't. Yeah, I know why it doesn't. It is possible to have the same document ID with multiple revisions. And I don't have anything here guarding against that right now. That is done elsewhere in the put. Yeah, it's done right. Is it done here? Where's that done? It's not there. I think it's here. Yeah. So I need to do a separate query in the same transaction to see if a conflicting document already exists. Yeah, that's basically the same query I need to do, just not as a prepared statement. And what am I querying for here? Querying for exists. For exists. If error colon equals, just do equals. Do it this way. Error equals gx dot. Yep. Okay. So far so good. Scan. All right. Now we can copy this over here. Let's get it lined up properly. Then we need to pass an ID, rev, and rev ID. Data.id. 1. I don't need to pass that in, do I? I can just hard code it. Something's not right. I think I'm missing a close parent. Yeah. Too many arguments and call to. Yeah, that doesn't go there. It's supposed to go here. You know what? This isn't actually the right query. Yeah, this isn't the right query at all. What I want is select true. I'm just going to do this from scratch. From no, hang on. I've got to have this somewhere. It's more like the logic I use in get, I think. What does get core doc do? Bad name if I don't know what it means. So what I want to do is I just want to get true or false. Does an undeleted document with the same ID exist? That's all I care about, right? It's not as simple as it sounds to do that, but that's what I want. Select. Let's build this up one at a time. From revs as revs. Or should I just join left join? Let me think. The revs table has the parent-child relationship between documents, so I need to select only the leaf revisions. I've done this 1,000 times. I just have to remember how it's done exactly. Here, this is how it's done. Left join revs as child on child.parent rev equals rev.rev and child.parent rev id equals rev.rev id. I'm missing, I don't know why it's missing here, but I need, oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because I'm going to have a where on the ID. I need to join on the ID also, but I'm filtering out all the IDs that aren't relevant. So I don't need that. And that's what's happening on the right-hand side as well. I don't need the rev ID here at all. I just need the ID. I don't know what's wrong. What are you complaining about? Oh, that. All right. Then I want to do join docs as doc on doc.id equals rev.id and doc.rev, rev.rev, and doc.rev id equals rev.rev id. Yes. Okay. Well, rev.e equals blah, and child.rev is null, and doc.deleted equals false. Okay, that should be the query I want. Now this should just be select true. And if I get no answer, if I get 0 rows or false, actually I should never get false. If I get 0 rows, then I have a conflict. I think that's it. Yeah, I get no rows and result set for okay, and then I'm okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So if errors is can I just do it like this? Is it that simple? I don't actually care about scanning this value. All the data I need is in the fact that it returned anything at all. It's kind of the same as over here, I think. But anyway, I just thought it was more idiomatic. I could make it scan it. I could use it exists, wrap it all on a select exists. It doesn't really matter. It's all functionally the same. I'll just stick with this. The only thing is it's a little bit funny. Like I had this discard thing, which just discards the result. And that could be confusing to somebody looking at it. That's my main hesitation here. Okay, this isn't quite working. I'm guessing it returns false if it's nil. If error equals nil, or let's try that. That's not going to solve the problem. It's just going to return early. Okay, I'm going to do the exists way. I think that's. I'm already confusing myself here. What was that? Here it is. So select exists. Error does not equal nil and not error is blah blah blah. Then I want to return that error. Otherwise, if not exists, if exists, then I have a conflict. And I want to return errors dot error status http.status conflict. I'm going to copy the error text I expected from. Actually, I don't want to copy from the test. I want to copy it from the other place. There. And okay, so I need to create another. I'm going to call this K errors. I have my own errors package. Undefined HTTP. What? That doesn't make sense. Did I spell something wrong? I must have spelled it wrong. I don't know what I did wrong. Okay, that looks like it's working. I think a bunch of imports there. There's my new query to see if a document already exists with the same ID, and if it does, generate an error. And that's exactly the one I would want to skip, or not skip, but retry in the case of generating my own UUID. right. How are we on time here? Still got a half an hour. Let's create a document with attachments. Get a chance to use that function I thought I was going to use earlier, but didn't actually. Let's copy this. Create doc with attachments. Actually, I don't need that. I don't want to copy this whole test at all. What do I want to copy? I want to copy this one, because I'm going to need a check at the end to see if the attachments are properly inserted. Same as I did here. A little bit different, but same concept. Okay, let's expand this to include some attachments. One attachment should be enough for our test purposes. And then what I want to check here is whether test attachments. I think I just do a select count star from test attachments. I think that's good enough. Scan into there. If it's not equal 1, I think that should do it. And I sure hope it fails right now. Ooh, it even panics. Oh, because I forgot to change the test name. Create doc with attachments. Let's say attachment. There's only one there. All right. Expected one attachment got 0. Exactly what I expected. All right. So now we get to do this thing. This will be nil once again, and then this revision ID1 rev data.rev ID doesn't like that. Why not? Because I got it backwards. Hey, we're storing attachments now. Let's delete our to-do comment. Attachments via create doc. All right, let's try this deleted thing. I want to see what happens if I create a deleted document with CatchDB. Let's test that with curl. I have CatchDB running locally in Docker for testing purposes. Post. Create this doc. No, I'm not create. I don't know the ID, right? It's being created for me. First, let's do a simple test. Make sure it works. It does. Okay, so here's the ID I got, and here's the revision I got. If I do it again, I get the same revision every time. You see, different ID every time, but same revision. Now I want to see what happens if I create it with the deleted flag on. It works. But now what happens if I try to fetch that document? It should tell me not found unless I specify the revision is what it should do. It says not found. If I specify the revision specifically, I think it'll work. Yeah, okay. So I can create or delete a document, so let's do it. That's going to require me to update a couple of my queries, but that's okay. Create a deleted document. I don't care about attachments. I do care about deleted true. And the check I want to do this time is select count star from test where deleted equals true. That should do it. Expected one deleted document, got 0. All right. You may recall that I had somewhere over here where I hard coded the deleted was false. Right here. That's what I need to change. And I think it's just a 2-line change. That's probably all I have to do. Yep, that's it. Allow creating deleted documents. All right, I'm essentially through my to-do list. There's 2 things left there, but these are more like long-term what-if things, and they're related to each other. What if I want to support different UUID configuration options? I don't have any idea if I want that and even what it would look like if I did. And then if I ever do and it becomes relevant, then maybe support retrying in case of a collision. For now, I'm going to look at the documentation and see if there's anything I've overlooked. I'm particularly interested in options, and I think the only option is this batch thing, which I think I'm going to ignore. I guess I could add it to my to-do list. Support batch mode. But I don't think I want it. What batch mode does is it tells the server to sort of queue up creations and then commit them all at once. I don't know how long it waits before it does that. But since it's intended for high performance, if you have a really busy server, you want to batch your writes. But since the purpose of my backend is for testing locally primarily, or maybe in CI, I don't care about that. And this is a feature on several endpoints where I've never wanted to enable it, so I don't think I ever will. And I think that's the only possible use case of the options here, which is why I haven't used it, which actually made this easier to manage. So I think I won't do that, probably ever, but I'll leave it in a to-do for later consideration. I'm going to consider this feature complete. So at the top of this recording, I created a pull request. I want to see, okay, that one's ready to merge. Now I'll create a pull request for this, for the features a feature we just added today. All right, so today we created 268 lines of new code and deleted 6 lines. Yeah, most of that was tests, of course. If we look over here, so create doc added 82 lines. Create doc test added 183 lines. So close to 2.5 times more lines than the code itself. And then we made a couple other changes at other places. Fixed a small bug here and updated a dependency, made it an indirect from indirect to direct. That's it. Pretty straightforward pull request. Let the test run on that, and then I'll merge that. I don't know. Let me see. I've got 25 minutes roughly. Don't know if it's worth jumping into something else. Let me have a look, though. Is there anything I wanted to refactor or clean up here, perhaps? Oh, I don't like the way I'm calling rev ID so many places, so I do want to fix that. It's not really that big of a deal, but this is kind of an expensive function. Yeah, It's doing crypto and not cryptocurrency, but actual crypto. MD5. It's creating MD5 sum every time. It's kind of expensive function. So let's do that. Let's cache that value somewhere. The first place I use it looks like is right here. So let's do rev ID, and then we can just replace all of these calls with rev ID. I could go one step further and I could create this revision. I think I will. I'll create this revision up here. And then I can call the string method on it here instead of reconcatenating this. This feels a little cleaner. It doesn't really make a difference. Like performance shouldn't matter. Let's do this. Rev equals revision. So this revision type essentially stores a complete revision, the two parts of revision that can be easily manipulated together. Rev.id. Here I can just pass rev. And then here I'll do rev.string. I feel like that's just a little bit more readable, to pass in the rev that's complete here. Here I'm still referencing the individual component of rev, but that seems fine. I like that better. Let's see if the tests still pass. Yep. Actually added one line of code, but I think it makes it more readable and definitely more performant. Not that that really matters, but I feel better about that. Let me look quickly if there's anything else I want to change. I'm thinking I could take care of that collision case. Like I said, it will literally never happen, but it could be handled here fairly straightforward, in a fairly straightforward way, I think. So this. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm thinking to make it actually streamlined. I would probably want to extract this to a new function. I'm not going to do that right now, if ever. I'm letting myself get distracted by things that don't matter. Push up the new version of my branch, and I'll probably call this a day. This will take a few minutes for the test to run, and then I will merge it. Oh, something failed here. Let me see what it was. Might have been. I have a couple flaky tests. It could have been one of those. Yeah, it was just a flaky test. So I'll let those tests run, and then I'll merge it, and then I'll be done with that feature. So thanks for joining today. It was a pleasure. I had fun. I hope you enjoyed the time and learned something. I hope to see you. I'm not going to be doing this next week. I'm going to be traveling for the next 2 weeks, so it'll be 3 weeks. Let me see what the date will be. June 24, I think I'll be back. And then the week after that, I'll miss again. I'll be traveling again. So basically, I'm taking June off, but I might be doing this on the 24th. Anyway, I hope to see you again. If not the 24th, then in July. Be sure to subscribe to my daily mailing list where I announce these every time. Boldlygo.tech/daily, as well as talking about go in general. So yeah, head over there, subscribe, or subscribe on YouTube or on Twitch or on LinkedIn, and you'll get notified in all those places. So thanks again for joining, and I'll see you all next time.